This is Kurtop with you, and these are 100 shocking discoveries that scientists are afraid to study. Secret Wife Berlin Book Castle Church. Under the floor, restorers found a single sarcophagus from the late 18th century, carved, gilded, hidden from prying eyes in such a way as if the mistress had foreseen in advance that she would be sought even after her death. All the details match. This is Countess Julia von Voss, the lady-in-waiting of the lawful queen, and at the same time the secret wife of Friedrich Wilhelm II. Their morganatic marriage took place in 1787 with the queen's approval, but their happiness ended 2 years later. Julia died of consumption and asked to rest in the very parish church where she was born. The Monument Protection Authority decided not to open the coffin. Ethical decisions matter more than sensational images, and preserving unique structures outweighs brief reports. A closed sarcophagus still reflects court agreements, the cost of personal will, and how memory can be rewritten without physical evidence. And it's good that we have it. A 2,500-year-old helmet and the Dacian treasures. This golden helmet is one of the most famous artifacts of Dacian culture, dating back to around 450 before Christ. It is known as the helmet of Kotsofaneshte and is considered not only a work of ancient jewelry art, but also a symbol of power and ritual strength. Decorated with eyes, snakes, and mythological scenes, it may have belonged to a priest or leader with a sacred role in Dacian society. The helmet seems to gaze at enemies, instilling fear and protecting its owner. On January 25, 2025, this helmet was stolen in a bold robbery. Several unique items, including this helmet and 3 royal Dacian bracelets, were stolen from the Drenthe Museum in Assen, Netherlands, during the Dacia Land of Gold and Silver exhibition. All the items came from the National History Museum of Romania. Losing these artifacts was a major blow to cultural heritage. How did people find or not find food? A new analysis of ancient predator remains conducted by Rice University provides new insights into how prehistoric people found or did not find their food. The study Saber-toothed carcass consumption behavior and dynamics of large Pleistocene carnivore guilds appeared in scientific reports. For more than 3 decades, archaeologists believe that one of the potential sources of meat crucial for the development of the early human brain was the flesh left behind by saber-toothed cats. Until recently, researchers believed that prehistoric humans stripped flesh from discarded animal carcasses for food. But these ancient remains indicate that this was not the case. A recent study of 1.5 million-year-old fossils shows saber-toothed cats ate all the flesh and some bones of their prey. These legendary predators, named for their huge upper canines, roamed Africa, Eurasia, and the Americas from the Miocene to late Pleistocene. Manuel Dominguez Rodrigo, a visiting anthropology professor at Rice and lead author of the study, and his colleagues determined the dietary habits of these prehistoric cats by analyzing their skeletons and those of their prey. Dominguez Rodrigo says this discovery is important because it shows early humans used different methods to find protein. This provides additional support for the idea that early humans were already successful hunters. Ancient Silk Manuscript. Between 1972 and 1974, near modern Changsha in Hunan province, archaeologists excavated the Mawangdui burial site, dating to the early Western Han Dynasty. Researchers discovered 3 tombs belonging to Prince Ho, ruler of the Dai fiefdom, from 185 to 165 before Christ. Likely his son and wife too. The most remarkable was the burial of a woman whose remains were mummified. Scientists discovered she died at about 54 from a heart attack. Archaeologists found, with her many sets of clothing, 158 lacquered items like furniture, tableware, toiletries, plus silk fabrics and wooden figurines. Besides the items, the inventory listed ancient texts on bamboo and wooden slips, plus silk scrolls. Notably, these included works on ancient Chinese medicine, pharmacy, and contemplative gymnastic and sexual practices. Chinese scholars are still studying the many discoveries from the Mawangdui burial site. Recent studies included over 19,000 textile fragments and 1,700 lacquered and wooden items from Prince Dai's wife's tomb. According to Yu Yangzhao from the Hunan Provincial Museum, this work has made it possible for the first time to identify elegant Chinese characters on silk fabrics, which indicate a high level of quality during the early Han Dynasty. Scientists also found an image of Philip Geniksov that was used in patterns symbolizing longevity. Among other discoveries were dozens of fragments of manuscripts on silk that were found. Some of these texts, written in Chinese characters, were identified as part of the third volume of the ancient literary work Sinde, a sign of wealth from the 16th century. This ring showcases the craftsmanship of 16th century German jewelers. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary piece of jewelry with elegant engraving, but once you open it, the ring transforms into an astronomical sphere. These rings were often called astrolabes. They consisted of several fixed bands that symbolized the celestial spheres. They could be used to demonstrate the movement of stars and planets. More often, it was just an elaborate ornament displaying the owner's status. The band's engravings had scientific and symbolic meanings. Such rings were often given as a token of love or friendship, hinting at an unbreakable bond, like the interdependent celestial bodies. It also served as a talisman protecting its owner. In the 16th century, owning such a ring showed both wealth and an interest in science and philosophy. Today, such artifacts are rare and are kept in museums, reminding us of a time when art and science were inseparable. The birds will tell. Kayalipinar is a modern village in Sivas province, central Anatolia. Underneath is Samuha, a key Hittite hub in the Bronze Age. At the same time, it was an administrative center and a sanctuary, where decisions were made not only by the office, but also through ritual. Here, archaeologists found a small clay tablet with cuneiform writing on both sides and a tiny hole through it, which clearly shows that the object was worn hanging on a cord. The format is more like a priest's working memo than a book for shelves. The text discusses ornithomancy, divination by birds, considering their flight, calls, timing, and responses to sacrificial food. To us, this isn't ancient exoticism, but a direct look at how power works. Because in the Hittite kingdom, such predictions were part of the official regulations, influencing wars, dynastic marriages, and treaties with neighbors. In those same layers, they found a mini-archive, dozens of tablets and royal seal impressions of Hattusili III and Queen Pudahepa. This connection closely links divination with bureaucracy, illustrating how religious practice was part of political administration. We saw how signs became decisions, with priests and scribes acting as parts of the same machine. 18,000 years submerged. During another underwater exploration, divers made a sensational discovery. By chance, they found an unknown passage between the Doseis and Sac-Acton cave systems. Swimming through, they discovered various artifacts. The divers promptly informed local authorities of their findings, who then notified archaeologists. The group had been exploring underwater caves. The passages are 372 kilometers long. They are located near the Mexican resort of Tulum and make up a huge cave system. Most of it is filled with water. This makes it the second longest after Mammoth Cave in the United States of America. The cave water has so many minerals that living creatures can't inhabit it. The news thrilled archaeologists, who quickly expected to find many valuable artifacts from various eras and centuries there. Their intuition did not let them down. The scientists quickly started their research and soon found over 200 sites with archaeological remains, including human bones, animal fossils, and Maya Indian household items. According to preliminary data, the length of the newly discovered cave is 80 kilometers. The archaeologists immediately called this place a real treasure trove, since it contains items that are about 18,000 years old. We should also remember that since the Ice Age, the world ocean has risen over 100 meters. It can be confidently established that these places were a refuge and home for ancient people. Divers found Maya-era altars and incense burners, along with older artifacts and fossils from 20 late Pleistocene animal species. The finds included remains of 14 prehistoric campfires, but their period is still unknown. An interesting discovery was the tools that have not yet been studied. According to scientists, the age of the artifacts found coincides with the end of the last ice age, 11,700 years ago. At the moment, this place is closed to visitors, as it is extremely important to conduct research without outsiders present. Experts also hope this won't be the last discovery in the area. First pharaoh's tomb in a century. In 2022, archaeologists made an incredible find. The first burial chamber of Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose II discovered in a century. He ruled about 3,500 years ago and was the fourth pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. The burial site is located in the Valley of the Kings on the west bank of Luxor. That's the same place where the famous tomb of Tutankhamun was discovered in 1922. The tomb entrance was discovered in 2022. Archaeologists quickly found vessel fragments inscribed with Thutmose II, his name as the deceased king, along with his wife, Queen Hatshepsut. Soon, scientists discovered that the remains of the pharaoh had been moved to another location several centuries after the tomb was looted. The tomb is in poor condition because it was flooded soon after Thutmose II's death. Inside, they found fragments of blue inscriptions, yellow stars, and parts of religious texts, indicating the importance of burial rituals. Thutmose II was known for suppressing uprisings in Nubia and the Levant. His reign lasted from 1492 to 1479 before Christ. His tomb was relatively short and considered less significant than those of his ancestors. This discovery was a key contribution to studying ancient Egyptian culture and Thutmose II's reign. Archaeologists call it one of the most significant archaeological achievements of recent years. The face of old power. West bank of the Nile near Aswan, on Gabel Kurna Hill beneath rubble, archaeologists uncovered a rare scene in Egypt, rock carvings showing a boat and a ruler in a palanquin. It could be among the earliest pharaoh portraits from the state's formation era. The shape of the boat, with its high ends and knife-like stern, matches the ritual vessels of the late pre-dynastic and early dynastic periods, around 3,200 to 3,000 before Christ. The debated details among researchers. The seated figure's elongated chin and headmark suggest the royal headdress and ritual beard of the first dynasties. The scene's style is compared to the Narmer mace head. If the parallel holds, we're seeing a visual symbol of royal power at its origin. This find is valuable because it's a rare example in Egypt of a ruler depicted clearly outside a tomb, on an open rock by the roadside. The boat sails against the current as people pull a rope, while a priest at the stern adjusts the course. Power is movement and collective labor, not a museum statue, but a living note in the early state's margins. A giant funnel with a primeval forest inside. Speleologists found a giant cluster of karst funnels in Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, southern China. The group, including scientists from China, the United Kingdom, and France, found 19 new funnels, one notable for its size and lush vegetation. Xinhua Agency reports that near Pinga Village in Laiyou County, the funnel is 192 meters deep, 150 meters long, and 306 meters wide. To understand the scale, imagine that the entire Manhattan block with its skyscrapers could easily fit into this long hole, and it wouldn't even be visible. Descending into one of the funnels, scientists saw a real hidden Eden garden with well-preserved trees reaching the height of a 12-story building, about 40 meters, and smaller heat-loving vegetation. 3 large cave openings remain in its walls, helping us understand how such giant holes in the earth form. According to senior engineer of the Institute of Karst Geology of the China Geological Survey, Zhang Yuanhai, this is an amazing new ecosystem. It's part of a series of sinkholes that are connected by an underground river and a cave system, making them the largest cluster ever discovered south of the Tropic of Cancer. Experts will continue to study the sinkhole, which has become the 30th one in this region. They suggest previously unknown plant and animal species may have survived in the relict forest system. Steak from an ancient bison. In 1979, gold prospectors in Alaska discovered what seemed like an ordinary rock. Beneath the ice, however, it was not a human or mammoth body, but of a bison, nearly intact. They called it Blue Babe for its bluish skin caused by iron reacting with the rock. The bison died about 50,000 years ago during the Pleistocene era. The marks on the carcass suggest a cave lion killed it, but the real question is how it was preserved. Thanks to permafrost, the tissue stayed dense, almost like jerky, with hair, muscles, and skin intact. This was the first step bison specimen ever found in this condition. When the research was finished, the project leader, paleontologist Dale Gatry, decided to celebrate with a dinner. He took a small piece of meat from the neck, stewed it with onions, carrots, and spices, then served it to his colleagues. The meat was tough with a strong, earthy flavor. Someone said it smelled mushroom-like or damp glacial. No one was poisoned. Everyone survived. This case became a legend because it's not every day you have dinner from an animal that died tens of thousands of years before you. And although this was a scientific experiment, not a gastronomic show, it serves as a reminder. Sometimes the past comes back not in a museum, but at the table. Why did people break shell rings? Archaeologists from the University of Helsinki studied more than 200 previously discovered shale rings, and their fragments dating back to the 4th millennium before Christ. In the Stone Age, these items weren't just ornaments or ritual goods. They were intentionally broken and shared to represent kinship or social ties. Shale or tough rings were widespread more than 6,000 years ago among hunter-gatherers in northeastern Europe. 246 such items have been found in the territory of present-day Finland. Archaeologists often find various artifacts in a fragmented state. However, in this case, it was doubted that the rings were destroyed in the ground or simply by age. Experts found and studied traces of tools and processing on the ends of the ring fragments and confirmed that the pieces had been deliberately cut. Then a hole was made in them, probably for wearing on a cord or sewing onto clothing. Scientists suggested that these ornaments were never intended to be used as whole rings. Instead, they represented parts of a single whole. The pieces were given to people from the same group, clan, or community. Some rings were also found in Stone Age burials. According to archaeologists, there is an example where 2 fragments of the same ring were discovered in neighboring graves, which could indicate a kinship between the buried individuals. One part was never found, and it seems someone was still alive during the burial. Using X-ray fluorescence analysis, it was established that the jewelry comes from present-day Russia, from the shores of Lake Onega. From there, they were transported hundreds of kilometers through an extensive exchange network. The items differ in chemical composition and design. Ancient Roman bridges in the middle of the Russian steppe. The Stavropol-Armavir-Tuapse railway has long been dismantled in some sections, but its bridges still stand today. At first glance, they look like ancient Roman structures. That's how impressive their architecture is. The construction of the railway itself, which people call the Tuapse Railway, began back in 1909. It was built out of necessity. Local merchants needed to establish trade, and using alternative roads was very expensive. To finance the construction of the road, a special joint stock company was created. The same merchants, along with local Cossacks and peasants, owned its shares. Goods began to be transported along the first section of the road as early as 1915, but the route passing through the Vasilovsky Bridge started operating only a year later. The amazing bridge impresses people not only today. Reinforced concrete was used in the construction, which was a revolutionary solution at that time. Notably, the bridges were built using old plans and stone arch designs. Specialists from Belgium and Germany supervised the construction, so people also call them German bridges. Of the 4 railway bridges, the tallest is the Vasilovsky Bridge. During its construction, it was cast entirely from concrete, and the arches were made separately. Tourists rarely came here. Most often, you could meet extreme rock climbers or travelers who like to visit unusual places. You need to look for this unique bridge in the Krasnodar region. There is a settlement called Vesioli there, which is why the bridge located nearby got its name. Cauldron of War. Brandenburg an der Havel. In the courtyard by Gotthardkirche Square, archaeologists are discovering old half-timbering and unearthing a copper cauldron. Inside, there aren't hundreds of coins, only 3 silver rings. Still, these rings reveal more about the past than books. This is a Swiss Dicken from Zug, dated 1610, featuring St. Oswald, and a Reichsdaler from 1618 from the start of the 13 Years' War. A Hamburg city coin from 1634 with Ferdinand II's name, minted 3 different ways. 3 routes: Switzerland, the Netherlands, northern Germany, and Hamburg. This geography shows that in devastated Central Europe, money moved with refugees, mercenaries, craftsmen, and trade caravans. Why does a large cauldron have only 3 coins? The simplest explanation is the owner had just begun collecting a reserve and hadn't returned for it yet. Another possibility is that the valuables were split among several hiding places to prevent total loss, and this spot was just one cache. Slag, solder drops, and non-ferrous metal fragments were found nearby. A craftsman once worked here, treating the cauldron as just a tool until the war made it a safe. This small set reflects the era's spirit, when people constantly prepared for war, epidemics, or other crises, always making provisions for tough times. Sometimes the past isn't chests full of treasures, but 3 silver coins hastily hidden just to make it through to the next day. The biggest tooth belongs to an ichthyosaur. This tooth is huge by ichthyosaur standards. Its root was 60 millimeters in diameter. The largest specimen that is still in a complete skull to this day was 20 millimeters and belonged to an ichthyosaur that was almost 18 meters long. Estimating ichthyosaur size from teeth alone is difficult, since the toothiest species aren't always the largest. The thing is, marine predators with large teeth often spend a lot of energy hunting, while giant filter-feeding predators can afford to swim slowly, collecting the smallest prey. Among other record-breaking finds in the Alps is the largest trunk vertebra in Europe, which allows it to compete even with the 21-meter-long Shastosaurus sicaniensis, the largest fossil ichthyosaur ever found. However, researchers note that to get the full picture, they need new ichthyosaur fossil discoveries. Madagascar, 10th century, Iharambe region in the southwest. On the Teneke Plateau, a University of Bern team is uncovering a stone world with terraces, rock-carved niches, artificial pools, and quarry traces across more than 8 square kilometers. Radiocarbon analysis of charcoal from the cultural layer consistently points to the 10th to 12th centuries. And this is where it gets really interesting. Certain elements of the complex are eerily similar to Iranian Zoroastrian burial monuments. The Towers of Silence, where bodies were left in the open air, and the cleansed bones were later moved to stone repositories. In the niches of Teneke, you can see recesses for doorways. Some of the rooms replicate the layout of Persian crypts. There are no direct remains. The climate could have erased them. But the architectural logic consistently points to the presence of groups with Iranian religious roots in Madagascar. In the early Middle Ages, fragments of Chinese and South Asian ceramics from the 11th to 14th centuries add another line. The island turned out to be so tightly connected to the Indian Ocean trade network that even a settlement 200 kilometers from the coast was integrated into the transoceanic exchange. If confirmed, the educational models on Madagascar settlement must be revised to include Persian influence and inland plateau communications. Gold bars in Normandy. Excavations of a small Iron Age agricultural settlement in northwestern France have led to a whole series of unexpected discoveries. Archaeological research has been conducted for years along the Orne River in Normandy. Scientists have established the boundaries of the site where the settlement, which existed as far back as the Neolithic, was located. People definitely stayed in the same place during the Bronze Age, Iron Age, and even when Rome's legions came to Gaul. French archaeologists have unearthed homes and farm buildings, likely from the 2nd century before Christ. Plant remains from storage pits indicate the settlement's inhabitants grew barley, millet, einkorn wheat, and peas. Using archaeozoological methods, scientists determined the type of animal husbandry. Mainly it was cattle as well as goats, pigs, and sheep. In addition, in one section of the ditch surrounding the settlement, remains of pig and sheep carcasses were found without any signs of butchering, which raises questions among specialists. This may have been a sacrifice or simply a way to dispose of sick animal carcasses. Scientists excavated an Iron Age necropolis at the settlement, used for burials for nearly 300 years, from about 540 to 250 before Christ. The main type of burial there is inhumation, or body burial, but there are also several secondary cremation burials dated to the 4th century before Christ. For a while, two burial practices coexisted. Usually this indicates representatives of different religions, which often also means different ethnic origins. Archaeologists' most amazing discovery wasn't the necropolis. In the ditch corner around the settlement, they found 29 gold, silver, and copper alloy ingots. Preliminary dating is 50s to 20s before Christ. Similar ingots were previously found in Normandy, and according to some scholars, they were not intended for use in jewelry, but as a means of payment which is functionally close to coins made of precious metals. Mysterious clay spheres. Archaeologists in Turkmenistan's Karakum Desert have resumed excavations at Gonur-Tepe and discovered something unusual. After a 3-year break caused by the pandemic, scientists have returned to studying this important Bronze Age site. Gonur-Tepe is the ancient center of the mysterious land of Margiana, which existed about 4,000 years ago. One of the most unexpected discoveries was clay balls with pieces of pottery stuck into them. The balls were arranged in a certain order and apparently were used in rituals. Nothing like this had been found here before. Strange cone-shaped objects made of minerals with glaze were also discovered. They may have also had ritual significance or were used for divination. Interestingly, similar objects have been found over a vast area, from the Gulf of Oman to India and even in Western Turkey. This supports the theory of the existence of a Central Asian sphere of interaction when different cultures actively exchange knowledge, traditions, and technologies. A micro-inscription on the wall, on a rock in western Iran by a trail that has been used for centuries, archaeologists noticed a fine scratch, barely visible in the shade and almost invisible under direct light. Only after reflectance transformation, imaging, when artificial lighting glides across the surface did it become clear. It was an inscription, a matchbox-sized line carved with remarkable precision. The letters are neat and precise with the repeated angles and sharp endings, as if carved from memory by a skilled hand. The dating is around the end of the 1st millennium, before Christ. The meaning is simple, a name and brief address to the deity. Just a name and request carved in stone at eye level. It wasn't a declaration but an important action at the time. The site of the inscription was clearly chosen for a reason. Nearby are cup-shaped depressions, soot traces, and pottery fragments. Everything indicates that people stopped here. Perhaps they left offerings, or maybe they were just seeking shelter and quiet. The remains of the largest megaraptor in history. Mauro Aranciago Orlando and his team of paleontologists extracted the skeleton of one of the largest known predatory dinosaurs. Discovered in 2019, the excavation was postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic. The extinct monster was named Macrothorax after an evil spirit from the mythology of the Patagonian Tuelcha people. The remains found indicate that the dinosaur was up to 10 meters long and weighed about 5 tons, which made it an incredibly dangerous predator. For comparison, other megaraptors were up to 8 meters long and only about 1 meter taller than a human, but they were still incredibly efficient hunters. Megaraptors looked like tyrannosaurs, leading to past confusion between them. However, new research points to 2 fundamental differences. First, megaraptors had partially hollow bones, which made them excellent runners. Second, the small forelimbs were actually quite developed, and with claws up to 35 centimeters long. Megaraptors inflicted severe wounds on prey. There is a theory that megaraptors could even grab their victims and tear them apart without using their jaws because their teeth were quite small. These predators probably relied on their speed and the power of their claws, and their size allowed them to hunt almost any prey that lived in what is now Argentina 70 million years ago. A giant animal graveyard. Northern Mexico, the basalt plains of the Suluagango Basin. During construction of the new airport, bulldozers uncovered a thick layer of bones instead of rock. Initially, they believed these were isolated finds, but as work progressed, entire fields of Pleistocene fauna appeared. Skulls and tusks of Columbian mammoths, horse shoulder blades, and camelid fragments. The density of the material was such that archaeologists had to change the construction schedule. After a preliminary study of the bones, scientists concluded that in the late Pleistocene there were small lakes and marshy areas here. In the spring, the banks became muddy. Heavy animals would get stuck, break their limbs, and drown. This is how traps formed, accumulating dozens of skeletons over centuries. Some mammoths have injuries from falling and being stuck in mud, while others show signs of predators and erosion. In nearby locations of this same basin, traces of humans from the end of the Ice Age were previously found. Bone cuts, carcass dismemberment, and precise placement of shoulder blades and ribs. Thus, we can understand the overall picture of the past, where people, predators, and large herbivores met by the water, sometimes with a tragic ending. Analyzing isotopes reveals what mammoths ate in their final months and how the climate shifted at the Ice Age's end. Sometimes regular construction does more than decades of archaeological digs. The Great Bell of Damarsadi. The Great Bell of Damarsadi is considered the largest bell ever made. It was cast in 1484 by order of the King of Myanmar, Damarsadi, and installed at the famous Shwedagon Pagoda in Yangon, one of the most sacred places for Buddhists in the country. Historical records show the bell weighed over 290 tons, setting a record among such structures. However, its fate was tragic. In 1608, Portuguese mercenary Ferrari, Felipe de Brito, seized Yangon and tried to take the bell to melt it for weapons. While moving it across the Bago River, he misjudged the weight, causing the bell to capsize the barge and sink. Since then, it has never been found despite numerous attempts. Today, the Great Bell of Damarsadi remains a part of legends and national pride in Myanmar. Its story is a reminder of how culture, spirituality, and greed can intertwine in a single artifact, the fate of which remains a mystery to this day. A first aid kit that is 2,100 years old. Honestly, medicine from past centuries seems barbaric compared to today. Healing was limited: leeches, incense, bloodletting, and incantations. But recently, something was found on the seafloor that revealed a medical secret from those times. A sunken ship 2,000 years old was found off the coast of Tuscany. Researchers found the remains of a fairly large medical kit there, which dates back to around 130 before Christ. Inside, they found 136 tin and wooden vials containing medicines, along with cubes, pills, and tablets. Most remedies have diverse, complex compositions. Some of the tablets contained more than 10 different plant extracts. Some were made from pine resin, zinc, starch, and vegetables. Scientists involved medical professionals who concluded that these medicines are still used today to treat certain diseases. For example, those related to ophthalmology and the gastrointestinal tract. This discovery reveals the secrets of the wide range of medicines people used before our era, and surprisingly, they were quite effective. El Toro artifacts. Under the name El Toro, hundreds of stone and bone items are traded online. Slab books with embossed covers, masks, almond-eyed figurines, and tablets with mysterious writing. They are reportedly found on El Toro's hills in Mexico, with totals ranging from several thousand to 20,000 items. Some of the artifacts are indeed made skillfully, with neat carvings and repeating motifs. On the other hand, there are no published excavation reports with coordinates, stratigraphy, associated ceramics, and laboratory datings that would allow us to distinguish genuine antiquities from modern forgeries. El Toro artifacts are often displayed with Peru's Ica stones. It's a large collection with out-of-place knowledge themes and some controversy over authenticity. There are expedition reports from enthusiasts surrounding El Toro, and even mentions of laboratory tests, but it never gets to verifiable publications in specialized journals or museum attribution. As long as there are no accurate reports or dates, it's just a large collection of privately owned items, beautiful and varied, but not suitable for ancient history research. One more clarification. Don't mix up Mexico's El Toro with Spain's Cueva del Toro. The Spanish site is classic archaeology. Layers, context, dates, publications, and studies on bone tools and Neolithic economy. That's what an evidence base looks like, which the Mexican El Toro clearly lacks. A bag from the Stone Age. Around 2500 before Christ, a Neolithic resident in what is now Germany found a unique way to decorate his bag. During excavations near Leipzig in 2012, archaeologists discovered more than 100 dog teeth, neatly arranged in a grave. This led to the belief that they decorated a bag flap. Archaeologists observed that the bag's leather or fabric vanished over time, leaving only the teeth, all facing one way. These teeth probably decorated the outer part of the bag. They are all arranged in the same way, which resembles a modern flap. These were discovered at the Profin Quarry. Other important artifacts were also found in the same area, including the burial of a woman who lived around the 50th year before Christ. She was buried with 500 grams of gold jewelry. However, even among such rich finds, the bag with dog teeth became a real discovery. This is the first time archaeologists have found direct evidence of the existence of such an accessory. To decorate this bag, teeth from about 10 dogs were needed. In other burials from that time, archaeologists also found wolf and dog teeth, as well as shells, which apparently were used to decorate blankets and clothing. When the fabric decayed, only these decorative elements remain. The drawings might change the city's history. In Turkey, about 2 kilometers from the ancient city of Alinda, a group of archaeologists discovered a cave with rock paintings inside that could rewrite the history of the ancient city, which was previously believed to be 3,500 years old. Now the discovered drawings could completely change the city's history. After studying them, scientists dated them to the 5th millennium before Christ. Previously, scientists believed Alinda was founded 3,500 years ago. However, new drawings suggest people lived here around 7,000 years ago, much earlier than thought. The cave was discovered during fieldwork in this area. Scientists did not expect to find a real sensation inside it. Along with the cave paintings, makeshift materials likely used in ancient times were also found inside the cave. On the walls, there were figures resembling humans, which scientists will still have to identify. But even now, scientists have determined that the images on the cave walls depict both men and women. But what exactly they depict remains unclear. Scientists still have much to do before they can solve the mystery of the drawings. The ancient city of Alinda was once considered one of the largest trading centers in Anatolia. In the city center, a large marketplace hosted both goods, sales, and gatherings. Olive oil and figs were produced in large quantities in the city. All these goods were sold throughout the Hellenistic world. It turns out the city appeared earlier than scientists thought. So they now have more excavations and research ahead, both in the city and nearby. Pyramidal ingots, northern Bosnia, the Sava River. Underwater archaeologists are retrieving not jewelry or coins from the bottom, but hundreds of rare iron bipyramidal ingots used 2,000 years ago to forge knives, arrowheads, and everyday items. They resemble double pyramids and are rarely found in large artifact groups. Previously, single specimens were known to museums in France, Germany, Slovenia, and Sarajevo, but here there's an entire stockpile. They date to around the 1st or 2nd century before Christ. Exchange networks were reorganized under Roman pressure, making iron the main currency for craftsmen. The archaeologists say it's just a sunken cargo. The river rocked, the barge nearly capsized, and a wagon could have fallen in at the crossing. The current swept away light goods, while heavy bipyramidal ingots formed piles on the bottom. The site was measured using reference points. A 3D photogrammetry model was made, and each ingot was placed in distilled water to slow corrosion. Next is chemistry. The analysis will show which ore the iron came from and its transport routes. If the tracing matches, Sava could become a major transport corridor before Rome arrives, and Bosanska Posavina as a hub where iron was transformed into power, into weapons, tools, and infrastructure. This rare hoard reveals production, not luxury. It contains blanks and logistics, not finished goods. It's a useful perspective on the economy of that time. Finds like these make it clear what exactly was traded and how it was transported. a mysterious pit at Stonehenge. Scientists from Ghent and Birmingham universities studied the deep soil layers around the ancient megaliths of Stonehenge. They used electromagnetic methods to scan the ground, as well as a specially developed program for semi-automatic data interpretation. Through their research, they found hundreds of large prehistoric pits and thousands of smaller ones in central Stonehenge, challenging our understanding of land use. At the most intensively studied prehistoric site in the world, excavations of 6 large pits confirmed the assumption of their anthropogenic origin. The largest, over 4 meters wide and 2 deep, was dug into the chalk bedrock. Its volume is dozens of cubic meters, and digging that much with stone tools and hard rock is very difficult. The pit is over 10,000 years old. That means it was dug by hunter-gatherers of the early Mesolithic era, who settled Britain after the last ice age. And this is the oldest trace of land use discovered at Stonehenge. Mapping of other large pits shows that they are located on the high ground to the east and west of Stonehenge, a place we commonly link with ritual activities, druids, and priests. People started visiting it soon after arriving on the island, after the glacier retreated. 7 millennia separate the earliest and latest pits, while Stonehenge's stones are at most 3,200 years old by bold estimates. The social context of activities for people in those places changed dramatically over time. They kept digging pits anyway, but it's unclear why. If pit traps in the Mesolithic are plausible, similar Neolithic structures seem odd. By then, game density should have dropped, so with advanced agriculture, driving game into pits seems less logical. Excavating large pits before iron shovels was very labor-intensive, especially in dense chalk rock. Tiara cider furnace? For years, the Louvre displayed the golden tiara, said to have belonged to Scythian king Saitaphernes. The artifact's inscription stated it was given to the king by ancient Greek Olbia's inhabitants and appeared credible. However, beneath its impressive exterior was one of archaeology's most infamous hoaxes. The story began in 1894 in Odessa when 2 antique dealers, the Gokman brothers, convinced a talented jeweler, Israel Rukamovsky, to make a diadem in the ancient Greek style for their archaeologist friend. Rukamovsky, unfamiliar with ancient mythology, depended on book illustrations provided to him. The half-kilogram masterpiece resembled a true artifact with Iliad scenes, detailed figures, and an inscription honoring the king. The Gokmans sold the item to the Louvre for 200,000 francs, making a profit. The deal was made, as people later joked, on April 1st, 1896. Soon after, some archaeologists, especially Adolf Furtwängler, questioned the artifact's authenticity. The Louvre, however, dismissed the doubts, attributing them to envy and politics. The truth emerged in 1903 when Rukamovsky discovered his creation was now a museum relic. He went to Paris and recreated part of the diadem himself, showing it was a modern forgery. The Louvre had no choice but to admit its mistake. Afterward, the tiara entered the Hall of Forgeries, and Rukamovsky gained fame. His works became sought after, and the tiara incident taught museums worldwide an important lesson. They ate 11 people. Sierra de Atapuerca, northern Spain. In the El Mirador cave, archaeologists examined 2 clusters of human bones and obtained one of the most detailed pieces of evidence of Neolithic cannibalism. Radiocarbon dating places the interval between 5,700 and 5,570 years ago. The remains belonged to at least 11 people, adults, teenagers, and 3 children. The bones were lying, partly in a natural depression, and partly mixed with household waste and animal remains. The cave was used as a pen then. The picture is formed not by individual details, but by their combinations. Cuts and chopping marks can be seen on the bones where the meat was removed. There are fractures on fresh bones to access the brain and bone marrow. There are traces of human teeth, as well as signs of heating. Some materials are burned, and there are signs of boiling in places. Strontium isotopes suggest several individuals are locals, not foreigners. There are too many coincidences for random bone damage, cuts, fresh fractures, bite marks, and heating. Together, they form a clear picture. The most optimistic version is that our ancestors encountered other people, The defeated were butchered and eaten. Scientists don't rule out that ancient people may have eaten members of their own community. The DNA of modern Japanese people. Today, Japan draws people worldwide, but it wasn't always that way. For 10,000 years, the archipelago remained isolated until the first migrants from the continent began to arrive. This was confirmed by genetic analysis of the remains of a person from the Yayoi period. The Japanese population has a dual origin, but the details of this mixing remained unclear for a long time. Scientists at the University of Tokyo, led by John Hyun Kim and Juno Hashi, investigated the issue. According to their data, about 80% of the nuclear genome of modern Japanese people comes from people from East and Northeast Asia. Two models explain Japanese genetic diversity. One proposes a single migration during the Yayoi and Kofun periods, while the other suggests multiple sources. Geneticists studied the genome of a Yayoi-era individual from Doigahama Cemetery and compared it to ancient and modern populations. It turned out that people from the Yayoi and Kofun periods are genetically closer to Koreans than to modern Japanese. This confirmed the hypothesis of a single source of migration from the Korean peninsula. Ancient remains from the time of the dinosaurs' extinction. Paleontologists found the first fossilized dinosaur remains from the day a massive asteroid hit Earth 66 million years ago. Scientists discovered the leg of a Thescelosaurus, a small herbivorous dinosaur, next to a fragment of the giant meteorite that killed it. Experts believe that the limb with skin was most likely torn off during the impact of the giant Chicxulub asteroid and then buried in the falling debris on the day of the impact. The fossilized leg of the Thescelosaurus was discovered along with a whole series of unique artifacts at the Tannis fossil site in the United States state of North Dakota, known as the Hell Creek Formation. This site was first discovered in 2008 and is unusual because it actually recorded events from the first minutes to several hours after the Chicxulub asteroid impact in the finest detail. Paleontologists say this is the first discovery of a dinosaur that became a victim of the famous asteroid impact, which resulted in the formation of an impact crater about 150 kilometers wide in the area of the Gulf of Mexico. They also believe they have discovered a tiny fragment of the space rock that ended the age of dinosaurs and led to the rise of mammals. Among the finds in Tannis are unique specimens: a fish with small fragments from the meteorite impact found in its respiratory tract, a fossilized turtle pierced by a wooden stake, and the skin of a horned triceratops. Professor Paul Barrett from the Natural History Museum in London said that the preserved leg once belonged to a dinosaur of the genus Celosaurus, whose name translates as wonderful lizard. Previously, we didn't have reliable knowledge about what their skin looked like. This discovery very convincingly shows that these animals were scaly, like lizards. They were not covered with feathers, like their contemporary carnivores. The study shows that something tore off the animal's leg very quickly. There are no signs of disease, pathologies, or evidence the leg was eaten, like bite marks or missing pieces. So the best idea we have is that this animal died more or less instantly. Tannis was discovered in 2008, but it wasn't announced to the general public until 2019. Tannis is over 2,500 kilometers from the Chicxulub impact crater in the Gulf of Mexico, near the Yucatan Peninsula. The meteorite's impact was so powerful, it reverberated across the planet. A jar with a rooster. In central Moscow, excavations uncovered a small pomade jar embossed with a rooster, an urban accessory that instantly takes us back to mirrors, fragrant ointments, and cosmetics of past centuries. These containers, made of ceramic or glass with ground lids, stored fatty mixtures for lips and skin, sometimes scented balms. By the wear and traces of pigment, we can tell how actively they were used. The rooster on the lid is more than decoration. In European symbolism, it stands for vigilance and good luck. In cities, it marks ownership and symbolizes the morning's call to present your best self. It is from such little things that the portrait of the city is formed, with its smells, workshops, markets, and the habit of wearing small emblems of the day. The youngest archaeologist. During an ordinary family walk in Tel Azekah, Israel, 3-year-old Ziv Nitzan accidentally made an archaeological discovery. She found an ancient scarab about 3,800 years old. This is where the biblical battle of David and Goliath took place. The Israel Antiquities Authority quickly confirmed the artifact's authenticity and uniqueness after its discovery. It turned out that this was not just a small stone, but an ancient scarab-shaped seal, a symbol of renewal and rebirth in Egyptian culture, which the Canaanites used as an amulet or seal. Researchers say the scarab is linked to the Canaanite civilization, who lived in the Levant during the Bronze Age. These items showed Canaan's beliefs, status, and strong cultural ties with Egypt. Signs of the ocean. Oahu, Hawaii. At Waianae's Army Beach, the ocean washed away sand again, revealing a long panel of 26 petroglyphs, anthropomorphic figures, lines and gestures at low tide. They were seen after the 2016 storms, but this summer, the whole scene emerged. About 35 meters of carvings on the sandstone are covered in places with bright green algae, so the outlines can be seen right in the shimmer of the water. The dating is not simple, but archaeological materials from the area point to around the 500s to 600s, a time when the coast of Waianae was already settled and maintained its own ceremonies and correspondence with the sea. Local tradition keepers read a ritual story in the composition. The main figure raises one hand and lowers the other, symbolizing sunrise and sunset. 8 figures are clearly male. The rest have no identifiable gender, which may also be part of the narrative and not a carver's mistake. The beach here changes from year to year, and storm cycles literally turn this stone page, sometimes revealing it, sometimes hiding it. An unprecedented treasure, southern Moravia. While working near the village, archaeologists found a pit containing a tightly packed bundle of layered objects. It first seemed like a workshop, but the setup suggests it's a deliberately hidden treasure. On top were bronze bracelets and rings, below axes with casting sprues, a couple of chisels, fragments of a sword, and several ingots. At the bottom lay a compact bundle of thin bronze tape rolled up. Nearby were fragments of a melting crucible and metal drops. Apparently, the owner was a craftsman and was hiding not treasures, but working capital, raw materials in popular forms. The dating clearly points to the late Bronze Age. This is indicated by the types of jewelry, the casting marks on the axes, and the chemistry of the alloy. Tin within the region's usual proportion, with traces of arsenic and nickel. Several items were clearly used, the edges are worn down, and there are repair rivets. Such hoards were hidden during danger or before migration, and sometimes the owners never came back. It's called unprecedented, not for the gold, but for the set's integrity and lack of later interventions. The layer is sealed like an envelope. You can trace the order in which the items were placed and reconstruct the owner's logic. From such sets, you can see how the Bronze Age economy worked in practice, what was considered liquid, how they balanced between jewelry and tools, and where the metal routes passed. The mystery of the medieval wanderer. Scientists from the University of Aberdeen have recently discovered how the famous medieval wanderer ended up in Edinburgh. We're talking about a man whose remains, dated to the 6th century AD, were discovered along with 13 other people in 1975 under a parking lot. It was thought a local family had died from the plague. However, specialist analysis shows the medieval traveler was unrelated to the group and came to Scotland's capital from the Southern Highlands, or Loch Lomond. The head of the research, or solely a chair, noted that this discovery became the key to obtaining information about the movement of people within early medieval Scotland and beyond. We know little about the lives of people from that time, but we do know for sure that it was a politically and socially turbulent period. Travel and mobility were difficult then. Cher and her team also determined that several members of the group, including the medieval wanderer, died in agony. They came to this conclusion after studying the skulls. Most likely they were struck with some blunt object, which resulted in death. This evidence serves as important confirmation that the period in question was characterized by a high level of violence. Specialists will keep working to gather more information and further study Scotland's medieval history. This dog is 7,500 years old. Meet Mug, a dog who lived in present-day Portugal. 7,500 years ago. You could have had one like this in your yard, right? The skeleton of this dog was found in the Portuguese site of Muge in 1880 during the excavation of a large Mesolithic monument. The discovery drew little attention then, as scientists focused more on the ancient people of these territories. A burial ground in Muge contained at least 110 human skeletons. Archaeologists managed to assemble the largest European osteological collection from the Mesolithic era. Dog bones were found in a shell mound at a depth of 4 meters. The skeleton was boxed and forgotten until 120 years later, it was found in a cabinet at the Lisbon Geological Museum. In 2010, radiocarbon dating showed the find was 7,680 to 7,450 years old. Since then, the Muge dog has been a key part of the museum's permanent collection. Experts found the skeleton was from a medium-sized adult dog, about 50 centimeters tall at the shoulders. The dog's age, determined by a skull X-ray and closure of canine pulp canals, was estimated at 2 to 6 years. A research team led by forensic reconstructor Cicero Moraes recently worked to recreate the appearance of the dog from Muge. The dog's skull was subjected to a computed tomography scan. The forensic technique, which is usually used for reconstructing human faces, was adapted to restore the dog's muzzle. To recreate the original shape of the skull, its missing parts and soft tissues, a virtual donor skull, a modern dog, was used as a reference during the reconstruction. The donor used for this purpose was a Belgian Malinois, a male. This specimen was selected for its size and structure, which closely matched the Muge dog's skull. Judge the result for yourself. To the author's knowledge, this is the first digital reconstruction of an ancient Mesolithic dog's appearance. Idols from Ela. When an abandoned pond is reduced to an overgrown ditch, an excavator often arrives to restore it. Workers clean the bottom, remove silt, and reshape the banks. At such times, archaeologists discover something from the past. Under a meter of dense silt, archaeologists uncovered stone figures, slabs with broad shoulders, a hint of a head, and slits for eyes. Some areas show polishing, others have chips, and one surface has ochre traces suggesting it was once painted for a ritual. Stylistically, these aren't garden decor, but classic anthropomorphic idols once placed on riverbanks and crossroads. The age could range from the late Neolithic to the early Iron Age. The laboratories will determine that. The context speaks volumes. The figure stood by the water, symbolizing transitions between shores, village, and field, or the living and ancestors. The silt acted like a safe, and low oxygen in the water kept the surface from weathering. The carvings are clearer than on exposed stones, though the ends show wear, which indicate that they were moved, possibly several times, as the riverbed changed. There are imprints of wooden stakes in the ground. Such an idol wasn't just placed in the ground, it was secured and often supported with small stones, like at altars. Some theories suggest boundary markers or guarding a crossing, while others see it as a sign of a public place for rituals or councils. Findings like these are also a reminder of responsibility. Dredging work often destroys the cultural layer in an instant. Here they made it in time, called in specialists, documented everything, and carefully removed it. Next are conservation, microscopy, and a search for nearby sacrificial pits or ceramic fragments for accurate dating. Lake of Skeletons. Hundreds of human skeletons have been discovered at the bottom of Rupkund Lake in the Indian Himalayas, which has earned it the name Lake of Skeletons. The age of these remains varies greatly, and it is still not exactly known how all these people died. It was previously assumed that they might have been victims of a single catastrophe, such as a powerful storm that claimed the lives of a large group of people. Recent studies have only made the mystery more complicated. Scientists analyzed DNA from 38 bodies and found the remains were from people separated by thousands of years. These people arrived at the lake at different periods of time, which disproved the theory of the mass death of a single group. The research began 10 years ago when geneticist Kumarasamai Thangaraj from the Indian Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology sequenced the mitochondrial DNA of 72 skeletons. Some were of Indian origin, but some of the remains belonged to people with DNA characteristic of the inhabitants of Western Europe, particularly Crete and Greece. Interestingly, the time range of these findings also turned out to be diverse. Most of the bones date back to the 7th to 10th centuries AD, but among them, there are also remains from the 19th to 20th centuries. The causes of death of these people remain unknown, which adds to the mystery of this place. The mysterious petroglyphs of Dayton Rock. On the bank of the Dayton River in Massachusetts, there is a small museum with a single but very unusual exhibit, a 40-ton rock that was taken out of the water and installed here in 1963. Dayton Rock has long baffled researchers with its mysterious inscriptions, whose origins have remained unknown for centuries. The rock is about 1.5 meters high, 3.5 meters long, and 3 meters wide. Its surface, covered with petroglyphs, was once slanted toward the water and probably served as a kind of message to sailors. The symbols engraved on the stone are straight lines, geometric shapes, primitive images of people, and strange writings. The first written mention of the Dayton Rock dates back to the year 1680. The English colonist John Danford drew the symbols, and 10 years later Reverend Cotton Mather described them in his book, calling them strange signs left by unknown ancient peoples. The rock gave rise to many hypotheses. In 1837, the Danish researcher Carl Christian Raffen claimed that the inscriptions were made by Vikings and were connected to the journey of Thorfinn Karlsefni, who, according to the Scandinavian sagas, reached the shores of North America in the 11th century. His theory caused a sensation, but in 1916, Professor Edmund Delabar from Brown University proved that Raffen had forged the image by adding lines that supported his hypothesis. Delabar suggested a new version, claiming he saw Miguel Corte Real's name and the date 1501 in the inscriptions. In his opinion, this message was left by the Portuguese explorer who went missing in America. In 1502, Corte Real searched for his brother lost near Newfoundland, but he also disappeared. Maybe he was forced to live with the Indians and 9 years later carved his fate on a rock. Delabar's theory was supported in Portugal, but met with caution elsewhere. Some think the inscriptions were made by ancient Phoenicians, while others believe they were Chinese who arrived in America before Columbus. Despite centuries of study, the Dayton Rock remains one of the United States of America's most mysterious archaeological finds, still inspiring researchers to uncover its true history. The aqueduct on the hill. Tajikistan, a 65-meter hill on an arid plateau. You wouldn't expect to find water here, but the excavation proved otherwise. An ancient water system runs along the slopes, featuring canals, settling tanks, and ceramic pipes with precise slopes. This isn't just a ditch after the rain. In the trenches, you can see sections where the channel was lined with stone and coated with rich clay, sometimes mixed with organic material for better waterproofing. In tight spaces, pottery segments as wide as a wrist were used, inserted spigot first into the water, sealed at the joints, and secured with stone wedges. The slope stays within a fraction of a percent. Water flowed by gravity without eroding the channel bed. Near the top ledge is a rectangular reservoir with a partition. Water entered through a sand and gravel filter, allowing silt to settle. Below is the distribution basin where two branches split. One leads to the utility area and kitchen workshops, the other to the upper platform, where archaeologists record traces of buildings and a sanctuary. Such a layout is typical for early settlements in Central Asia. First provide water for the people and crafts, then everything else. Where did they get the water? Canal traces extend to the hill's base near the seasonal stream. Judging by the excavation pits, there was a catchment, a simple stone water collector that stabilized flow after rains. In the dry months, they received extra water from cisterns with leveled, coated bottoms. Water lines mark the walls. Few direct datings exist, but pottery and construction methods date the system to ancient times, likely the early Middle Ages, at least 1,500 years ago. A 1,000-year-old altar made of skulls. In 2012, Mexican authorities discovered a cave for the first time that contained about 150 human skulls. At the time, police believed it was a modern crime scene and intended to investigate. Now, a new study has shown that the skulls found were probably the result of ritual human sacrifices carried out 1,100 years ago. How can you mistake an archaeological find for a crime scene? The thing is, the skulls of pre-Hispanic indigenous cultures were often found badly damaged. Usually they were broken and placed in ceremonial circles, but these skulls remained completely untouched. Police thought the cave in the Kamalapa frontiers was an ideal spot for local gangs to hide bodies. Researchers found out that the skulls from the cave were much older than the police thought. They date back to the period between 900 and 1200 AD. The skull's teeth had been removed, consistent with the customs of that era. Scientists believe that the place once housed a tzompantli, or skull altar. These structures were used by Mesoamerican civilizations to display the skulls of prisoners or for sacrificial offerings. Tzompantlis were usually made of wood, so almost nothing remains today. Archaeologists continue to work in this area in hopes of finding similar altars or any other artifacts from that time. The sacred tunnels of the Assyrian Empire. During rescue excavations in Bashbuyuk, southeastern Turkey, archaeologists found ancient tunnels carved into rock. Archaeological work began after local residents contacted the authorities about increased activity of illegal diggers near the village. The entrance to the underground complex was found beneath a modern two-story house. Archaeologists dated the site to the first millennium before Christ, during the Assyrian Empire's rule in this region. Numerous Assyrian-style drawings were found on the complex's walls. Scientists think the site was sacred and religious. Some rock drawings show processions of Assyrian gods like Hadad, rain and storm, Sin, Atargatis, fertility, and others. A unique feature of the inscriptions is the language still in use here. The inscriptions in the underground chambers were in Aramaic, not Assyrian. However, this is explained by the fact that for the local people of that time, Aramaic was their native language. Thanks to the archaeologists' quick work, they partially deciphered a cave inscription mentioning Mukin Abua, a Neo-Assyrian official from Adad-Nirari III's reign. Scientists believe this person was made ruler of the region, and the underground complex may have sheltered local inhabitants. However, for now, this is just a working hypothesis. The tree that survived. A tree rarely lasts for centuries, as water, oxygen, and fungi destroy it faster than any archaeologist. Organic finds are special because they reveal both the object's shape and the craftsman's touch. In one of the excavations in western Russia, a wooden object was recovered from a waterlogged layer, an elongated piece with finger grooves and a carefully carved end. By its shape, it is an attached handle or fastening element that once worked with leather, a bone insert, or a bronze plate. Thin parallel scratches from a knife and draw knife are visible on the surface. By their frequency, you can identify the work stages, rough shaping, polishing, and some abrasive finishing. Microscopy reveals porosity and growth rings, which is enough to identify the species. Typically, birch or alder was selected. They are easy to work with and crack less during drying. Radiocarbon dating and associated ceramics date the complex to the late Stone Age to early Bronze Age. After extraction, the wood is wrapped in a damp cloth, then moved to a polyethylene glycol bath. Water in the polymer's cell walls is replaced to prevent warping during drying, followed by slow vacuum drying. Nuances appear during conservation. At the end, a small notch marks the assembly side, and micro holes on the side are for the cord rivet. These small details together show how it was used. The handle was placed in the slot, fastened with a cord or pin, and used under load. Ancient parquet. Switrek is a wooden track built about 5,830 years ago in England and discovered in 1970 by archaeologist Ray Swit, after whom it was named. This is among the oldest known examples of ancient human engineering. The track stretched for 1.8 kilometers across the marsh and consisted of wooden planks laid on crossbeams, which allowed people to safely cross the boggy areas. Dendrochronological analysis of the wood confirmed that all the trees for the decking were cut down around the same time, ensuring dating accuracy. Interestingly, the track was used for just 10 years before being abandoned, likely because of rising water levels. Artifacts found along the path confirm that it was actively used. Switrek shows that even in the Neolithic era, people could build complex structures and plan their use. Similar walkway building technologies lasted in the English countryside until recent centuries, showing the practicality and durability of ancient engineering. An ancient underground shelter has been found. Scientists have discovered an ancient underground city where the first Christians used to hide. And surprisingly, it is located in Turkey. A couple of years ago, research began on a large cave complex beneath the Turkish city of Midyat. Local residents knew the caves existed but were unaware of the size of the underground structures. Archaeologists first discovered a corridor in a cave that led to the underground complex. In the underground city, they found altars, storage rooms, wells, and a tunnel network. Nearly 2,000 years ago, the first Christians are believed to have hidden here from Roman Empire persecution. At that time, this region was part of the Roman state, and the city of Midyat was located in the province of Assyria. Scientists believe early Christians fleeing persecution kept using the underground city after the Roman Empire fell, hiding from wars that led to the region's Islamization. According to archaeologists, the underground city ceased to exist after the Armenian genocide in 1915, as Armenians are also Christians. The Meromi female image. Russia, right bank of the Oka River, Zvyagintski II necropolis. Thought to have been emptied by black diggers, it still produced a rarity. A female burial with nearly complete jewelry, a forehead wreath, twisted wire temple rings, an open-work brooch on the chest, a thin belt buckle, and belt pendants. It's more than beautiful. A set like that conveyed age, status, belonging, and trade partners without words. Imported beads, denarii, and dirhams are nearby. Maroma was on a trade route, not isolated from events. The early chambers are long, built with birch planks. Men's graves hold axes, knives, and Hungarian belts. By the 11th century, women wore only a pair of temple rings, sometimes already on the wrist. Old Russian style is increasingly clear in the items. Even a random padlock with a key suggests connections, from Druzhina traditions to Scandinavian influence. Dularcha Railway Tunnel. Deep within Australia's Dularcha National Park, an old railway tunnel lies hidden, long abandoned. Built in 1861, it once served as part of a route that passed through dense forests. The tall concrete arch once let trains with passengers pass through, but after the tracks were moved in 1932, the tunnel was abandoned and became a spooky attraction. Legends about a ghost train supposedly rushing along the abandoned tracks scare tourists and attract thrill seekers. The tunnel is actually home to just a small group of bats hiding in its concrete cracks and crevices. A trail was made for tourists so they could explore the old structure and see these nocturnal inhabitants with their own eyes. As for the ghost train, that all depends on your imagination and luck. Ammonite amulet? The Romans loved turning nature's oddities into personal talismans, and the find from Galicia confirms this. Archaeologists found a 450 million year old trilobite fossil in the household waste of an aristocratic home. There are no holes in the stone, so it was most likely worn in a setting made of metal or bone as a miniature family amulet, claiming the power of the ancient sea. Researchers also consider another explanation. The trilobite could have been a game piece for a board game like Ludus Latrunculorum, which was popular in the provinces. This is only the third known case of humans using a trilobite and the first in a Roman context, significantly altering our view of elite tastes of that time. In the ancient world, collecting curiosities was a trend. Emperor Augustus, for example, bought living fossils no worse than modern billionaires. Such a talisman is not just an ornament, it's a demonstration of control over time. You're wearing a Paleozoic artifact around your neck, and it was believed to ward off the evil eye and bring good luck. A rich Phoenician necropolis. Archaeologists in southern Spain found a Phoenician necropolis from the 4th or 5th century before Christ. The discovery surprised scientists since such a structure had previously only been found in Sardinia and North Africa. The history blog reports the discovery was made in Osuna, southern Spain. Workers repairing the water supply system were the first to discover the ancient necropolis. They discovered limestone tomb walls, paused work, and called in experts. The latter say that this is a unique discovery, and not only because the tombs are perfectly preserved. The fact is that such necropolises had not been found in Spain before. At the moment, archaeologists have excavated 8 tombs with staircases and entrance atriums. Apparently, these were elite burials, which, according to experts, have no analogs in the inland regions of Phoenician Spain. Previously, similar necropolises were only found in the coastal region, once the Phoenician colony of Cadiz, but the city of Osuna is located quite far from the coast. It is about 90 kilometers east of Seville. Delgado said experts were certain Roman structures lay underground at the start of the excavation. They would be much more fitting for this place and its history. The researchers were therefore surprised to find Phoenician-era tombs and hypogea, or underground vaults. Lifesaver. The Assyrians are known for their military achievements and technological innovations, which had a significant impact on history. They created the first regular army, introduced cavalry to replace chariots, and developed military engineering units with siege weapons. These innovations made the Assyrians one of the most powerful military forces of their time. But aside from their notorious brutality on the battlefield, there is an interesting fact about how they solved the problem of crossing rivers. One of the unique inventions of the Assyrians was an individual flotation device, the prototype of the modern life ring. These skins made from animal hides were easy to inflate and helped them stay afloat, allowing warriors to cross rivers safely and avoid the danger of drowning. This simple yet ingenious idea was extremely effective and allowed the Assyrians to move quickly even through difficult water obstacles, giving them a tactical advantage. This invention can be considered an early predecessor of modern lifebuoys. These wineskins aided warriors and were also used daily to transport people and goods across water. This practical method was widely used in areas with large rivers and bodies of water. Treasures after the hurricane. The coast of Florida, an area with the loud name Treasure Coast. This isn't the first gold discovery here, but what divers found this summer was among the biggest in recent years. 1,056 coins, 5 of them gold, the rest silver. The total value is about $1 million. But the main thing isn't the price. The coins were found where the Spanish fleet sank in 1715. 11 ships carrying gold and silver were sailing from the colonies to Spain when a hurricane started in the Caribbean. Most of the ships went down, along with about 1,000 people. Now, 3 centuries later, part of this treasure is back on the surface. The coins are well preserved, the minting is legible, and the mint marks indicate Mexico, Peru, and Bolivia. Some are 8 drachma piastres. Others are rare commemorative issues. Archaeologists say the discovery is more than just adding coins. Each one shows trade, power, and tragedy. They weren't moved for beauty. These were the empire's wealth, used to build palaces, fund armies, and maintain colonies. Now they're back in people's hands, not for profit, but as fragments of lost history swept away by a storm and returned by the ocean. A casket containing Polish monarchs' relics. This elegant casket, inscribed with Izabela Czartoryska, is not just an antique, but a true symbol of Polish history. In 1800, Princess Izabela Czartoryska gathered a unique collection of relics in it, all connected to Polish kings and great historical events. The casket contains 73 items, including monarchs' belongings and fragments of weapons and clothing, representing national heritage and resistance. Izabela felt it was her duty to preserve Polish identity during the country's difficult partitions. Her casket was placed in Poland's first museum, the Temple of Sibyl in Puławy, where she hosted guests to recall the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth's glory. Like many national treasures, the casket also met a tragic fate. In 1939, during the Nazi invasion of Poland, it was looted, and to this day, some of the relics are considered lost. A figurine of Siamese twins, a small ceramic artifact, 2 faces, 1 body. The figurine is fused together with shared legs but different heads, pocket-sized, about the size of a palm. This isn't a temple figurine or display piece. It was handheld, moved around, and perhaps taken on trips. There are ochre traces, fine polishing, and notches on the edges. Made carefully from 2 halves, the seam is smoothed by a carved line. An experienced craftsman made it, but the figurine wasn't preserved like a museum piece. It has chips, cracks, and wear. Why does it have 2 heads? There's a theory that these aren't twins or a pair, but the same person in 2 different states. Alive and dead, asleep and awake, old and young. In a number of Neolithic cultures, such an image symbolized the transition between times, worlds, and cycles. It wasn't a portrait, but a diagram showing movement from past to future through death or renewal. If ochre is confirmed, it adds another layer. Red was often linked to blood, life, and fire. We're not just seeing a strange figurine, but a symbolic knot where time, the body, and ritual converge. The first vending machine. The city of Alexandria in Egypt was a true jewel of the Hellenistic era, a center of science, culture, and innovation. The Mouseion, history's first university prototype, and the renowned Library of Alexandria, which preserved ancient world knowledge, were located there. In the 1st century AD, the renowned scientist and inventor Heron of Alexandria lived and worked in this city, making immense contributions to science and technology. He worked in mathematics, optics, hydrostatics, and invented prototypes like the theodolite, odometer, and a jet-propelled steam turbine. One of his most notable inventions for daily life is Heron's creation of the world's first vending machine. This amazing mechanism was located at the entrance to the temple and dispensed a portion of holy water for drinking and washing hands. The principle was simple. A temple visitor inserted a 5 drachma coin and the machine dispensed water. The device was triggered by the weight of the coin, which triggered a lever to open a valve. It might seem that such a simple system could be easily fooled by throwing something else instead of a coin. However, modern researchers and reconstructors claim that the machine could be adjusted for a specific weight and size of coin, which made attempts at cheating practically useless. This mechanism, despite its simplicity, was a brilliant invention for its time and showed how progressive the ideas of Heron of Alexandria were. A man in a fox skin, Ulujak Huyuk, Western Anatolia, 9 centimeters of clay, and a very specific image. The man is not naked. He has a fox cloak with a turned-out collar and hanging strips of fur on his shoulders. The modeling is smooth, the firing is clean, and the edges are neat. It's the work of a confident hand from a local workshop. Why a fox specifically is clear without any mysticism. In Anatolian traditions, it represents warmth, hunting, and the right to lead. On the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, fox pelts cover the lower parts of the figures. There are centuries and distances between the monuments, but the meaning is the same. Clothing as a sign of one's role. Here, status is shown by what is worn, not the body itself. The figurine is for home use. The base is trimmed, which means it stood on a stand. The small chips show it was handled and moved, not buried underground for centuries, but kept indoors. Ochre traces are typical for Ulujak items. If the paint is confirmed here, the cloak may have been colored. Exquisite jewelry and weapons. Archaeologists in Trento, Italy, found a pre-Roman necropolis from the early Iron Age, 8 meters deep. Beneath the modern streets, over 200 tombs from the 9th to 6th centuries before Christ were discovered. The necropolis probably belonged to the Aretini, Alpine tribes linked to the Etruscans. This era coincided with important historical events, such as the Olympic Games in 776 before Christ, and Rome's founding in 753 before Christ. The necropolis featured a complex design. Upright steles marked the western edge of the stone chambers under the burial mounds. Over time, additional burials appeared around them. Rich burial gifts were found in the tombs, metal weapons, jewelry with amber, and glass paste inlays. These artifacts indicate the high status of the buried and testify to trade connections with other regions of Italy. The oldest Christian church. Archaeologists found the remains of an Armenian church nearly 2,000 years old, making it one of the world's oldest and the oldest in Armenia. The University of Münster in Germany, which cooperated with the Armenian Academy of Sciences during the excavations, called this discovery sensational evidence of early Christianity in Armenia. The church was discovered during excavations in Artashat, the former capital of the ancient Armenian kingdom. Experts believe that the church was built in the 4th century AD, at the same time when the Echmiadzin Cathedral was built, the first Armenian church considered the oldest in the world. The discovered building is the oldest archaeologically confirmed temple on the territory of Armenia. It is the first known octagonal church in Armenia. Similar structures on the eastern Mediterranean coast also date to the 4th century. The church resembled early Christian memorial buildings. Its diameter was about 30 meters. The floor was made of a mixture of sand and cement, and the walls were made of terracotta, probably brought from Greece or Italy. Scientists also discovered traces of wooden platforms, which made it possible to accurately date the structure using radiocarbon analysis. The Black Pyramid. A stone pyramid from Ecuador often appears in collections of out-of-place artifacts featuring an inlaid eye at the top, 13 steps, and small symbols at the base. It was allegedly found in the 1980s near La Manna, Cotopaxi province, along with hundreds of strange objects. The eye glows under an ultraviolet lamp, and at the base there is a drawing of the Orion constellation and ancient writing. The artifact is linked to private collections, such as Klaus Dona's Circle and the Crespi collection story. The problem is that the item has no published archaeological context, no excavation report, no layer coordinates, no museum inventory history. This is the main red flag for archaeology. The fact that it glows under ultraviolet light by itself doesn't prove anything. Many minerals and modern pigments fluoresce under black light. References to 13 steps and Orion are an interpretation of the appearance, not a dating feature. The main point is the origin. A significant part of Ecuadorian wonders revolves around the collection of Father Carlos Crespi in Cuenca, to which locals handed over ancient artifacts for decades without recording the finds. In the 20th century, several researchers and journalists labeled much of this collection as fakes or later works by craftsmen. The collection also lacked proper scientific publication. Authentic anomalous artifacts always have documentation, location, layer, charcoal with ceramics for dating, lab report, publication in a specialized journal, and a museum inventory record. The Black Pyramid doesn't have any of that. The Emerald Cup. This 17th century emerald cup is a true treasure carved from a single piece of emerald weighing 252 carats. Such artifacts are extremely rare because working with such a large stone requires incredible skill. The surface of the cup is decorated with fine inscriptions in Arabic, which indicates its origin from the Islamic world, most likely from Persia or India, where the art of stone carving was at the highest level. Back then, emeralds were prized for their beauty and supposed magical powers, believed to protect against poison and grant wisdom. Cups made from these stones belonged only to rulers or nobles and were used on special occasions to highlight their status. Special attention is drawn to the hexagonal shape and smooth edges, which catch the light and make the emerald glow from within. These items symbolized power and spiritual purity. Today, this cup is one of the rarest and most valuable artifacts preserving the grandeur of past eras. A remarkable find in Lake Michigan. Who hasn't heard of Stonehenge? Massive stones form a circle standing without any reinforcement. The purpose of this installation is still unknown, and a similar structure was found in 2007 at a depth of 12 meters in Grand Traverse Bay of Lake Michigan, CSHA. The expedition's main goal was to find sunken ships with advanced sonar equipment. The scientists discovered this strange underwater structure and were surprised to find a historical monument likely over 9,000 years old. Research shows many stones bear mysterious drawings that closely resemble extinct animals. Several hypotheses have been put forward about which people could have built such a structure, but so far none of them have been confirmed. An ancient sound. In Akhenaton's residential quarter, the desert capital built by Pharaoh Akhenaten, as a symbol of the new religion, archaeologists discovered an object that initially appeared insignificant, a small bone cylinder the size of a finger phalanx, featuring a carved hole and beveled mouthpiece. It only became clear upon close examination that this was a whistle, not just a decoration or fragment. The material is a light tubular bone, likely from a bird or small hoofed animal. There are traces of polishing on the surface, and inside there's a dark residue that forms with prolonged use. All signs show it wasn't just stored, it was used. It produces a steady tone, and by covering the hole, you can change the pitch. It's not a musical instrument, but it's a working signaling device. The exact purpose is unknown, but there are some working theories. In Amarna, known as Akhetaten, Few such items have been found, all in residential or craft areas. It might have been a child's whistle, a toy, or a workshop signal to cut through yard noise and alert assistants. Another theory suggests ritual use. In Egypt, sound often accompanied rituals, processions, and prayers. The whistle is carved cleanly with equal proportions and beveled edges. All this indicates that such items could have been produced in small batches near the bone carving workshop. Perhaps it was a part of everyday life, as familiar as dishes or a lamp. Each find in this episode is not about a legend, but about a person, about his choices, fears, hopes, and mistakes, about what he did not knowing that someone would one day dig it up. And maybe that's what real archaeology is all about. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Goodbye, everyone.